In 2002, a fashion writer was brutally stabbed in her quiet Cape Cod town with her daughter sitting right next to her. Was it a random act or a betrayal of someone she knew? We're about to find out. Today, we're going to unravel the psychological aspects and layers of this case in the murder of Truro, Massachusetts. The Christa Worthington case is a tragic story that was set in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. It's a little town called Truro. It's quaint, it's beautiful, it's idyllic, and Christa was found dead. I'm going to analyze several things in this case: the victim and the serene yet isolating backdrop of her life, the shocking plot twist to the investigation, the bizarre details that left investigators puzzled, and then my psychological take on what drove this crime. If you're a fan of true crime psychology, you're in the right place. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I analyze true crime, what drives someone to commit the heinous acts that they do, and I also talk about victim psychology. A quick disclaimer here: these are just my speculations, not an official diagnosis of this case. Now, let's talk about a murder in Truro. The psychology behind the Christa Worthington case. Truro, Massachusetts is a small community on Cape Cod. It's so beautiful, it's quaint, but that January in 2002, it was a tragedy that shattered the quiet and peaceful community. Christa was a successful fashion writer. She wrote in magazines like the Women's Wear Daily, Cosmopolitan, and the New York Times. Pretty impressive. But she wanted to slow things down. She wanted to raise her child, and she wanted to live somewhere more remote, more quaint, and less of the hustle and bustle. And she found that in Truro, Massachusetts. Christa was sharp. She was independent. She was fiercely devoted to her 2.5-year-old daughter, Ava. And you're going to find in this case, there's a lot of interesting people in her life, men who became suspects in her death. The first person that the police looked at in this case was Ava's father, Tony Jackett. He was a local shellfish warden and a married man with 6 children. He had a family of his own. He had 6 kids, and yet their brief affair was no secret in this small town. As you can imagine, gossip ran wild. But Christa embraced single motherhood. She created a cozy home. Her driveway was long, but it had a lot of seashells along the way. It was cozy. It was quaint. It really looked like a Massachusetts home. Then on January 6, 2002, another man entered the picture, Tim Arnold. Tim was Christa's ex-boyfriend. He stopped by her home to return a borrowed flashlight. What Tim found that day when he went in to return his flashlight was devastating. Christa was laying on the ground half naked. In a heartbreaking scene, her daughter, Ava, was clinging to her. Blood pooled under her head, and the back door showed signs of a break-in. An autopsy revealed that Christa had been dead for about 36 hours and had sexual activity shortly before her death. The scene was both intimate and brutal, setting off a 3-year investigation that put the entire town under a microscope. Literally, the entire town was under investigation. The investigation took a winding path, with police initially focusing on those who were closest to Christa. Tony Jackett, Ava's father, was scrutinized due to their affair. Tim Arnold, Christa's ex-boyfriend who found her, became an early suspect as well. Police didn't really believe that he was returning a flashlight. Even Christa's father became a suspect, but DNA tests cleared all 3 of these men, leaving police to grasp at straws. And here's a really interesting part of this case. In an unprecedented move, the district attorney requested DNA samples from nearly every man in Truro. Wow, that's over 800 men hoping to find a match. They really were grasping at straws. They were hoping to find one match out of 800 samples. And they did. The plot twist comes years later in April 2005 when a DNA match pointed to an unexpected figure, Christopher McCowan. He was a 33-year-old garbage collector who serviced Christa's home. Christopher McCowan, he was arrested for the murder of Christa. He was charged on April 14, 2005, more than 3 years after Worthington's body was found on January 6, 2002, in her Truro, Massachusetts home. The arrest was based on DNA evidence matching McCowan to the crime scene and incriminating statements he made during the police interview. McCowan wasn't a close associate, just a familiar face along the trash route. His arrest shocked the community, not because he was a stranger, but because his story kept shifting. At first, he claimed he barely knew Christa. Then he admitted to having consensual sex with her during the trash pickup days before her death. Later, he told police he and a friend, Jeremy Frazier, went to her house after drinking, beat her, and that Frazier stabbed her, not him. Frazier, however, had an alibi, and his DNA wasn't even at the scene. Now for my psychological analysis of this case. Again, these are my speculations. It's not a diagnosis, but let's explore the mental health dynamics here. McCowan's inconsistent statements, denying that he knew Christa, the intimate encounter that he said that they had, then implicating his friend, suggests a pattern of deception often seen in individuals under pressure. From a psychological perspective, this could point to cognitive dissonance, where someone constructs conflicting narratives to avoid guilt or scrutiny. McCowan's defense argued that he had a low IQ of 76, which might have made him vulnerable to manipulation during the 6-hour unrecorded police interview. If true, this raises questions about suggestibility. Could he have been coerced into a false confession? Research into law and human behavior show individuals with lower cognitive abilities are more susceptible to false confessions under intense investigation. On the other hand, all of McCowan's claims that he had sexual sex try to blame his friend and the fact that his job as a garbage collector probably gave him some idea of Chris's whereabouts and the fact that she was isolated. He probably knew the best time to break in. So these indicators of McCowan that suggest obsessive tendencies. He may have developed a fantasy, maybe even convinced himself that Christa wanted to be with him. That's a distorted sense of reality. The prosecutors suggested he acted impulsively after a night of drinking, seeking control or gratification. This aligns with theories of instrumental aggression, where violence serves a purpose like silencing a witness. His reported IQ of 76, which is below average and close to the threshold of intellectual disability. The cognitive limitation may have influenced his behavior. McCowan's emotional responses provide further insight into his psychological state. At his sentencing, he was visibly emotional. He was wiping away tears and expressing devastation while at the same time maintaining his innocence. The social and environmental context of this case adds complexity to McCowan's psychological profile here. As an African-American man in a predominantly white community, he faced allegations of possible racial bias in jury deliberations and media coverage. But without a comprehensive psychological evaluation and assessment, these indicators that we do know, his low IQ, emotional distress, substance use, and social pressures, offer only a partial view of McCowan. His mental health indicators likely played a factor, but why Christa? Perhaps her high-profile background and solitary lifestyle may have made her a target for someone like McCowan who was searching for power, or maybe he was impulsivity. He knew her schedule. He knew she was alone. As a single mother in a small town, she navigated the social isolation and judgment after her affair with Jacket. Could her trust in familiar faces like the garbage collector she saw on a weekly basis have left her exposed? Betrayal here feels central. Whether Christa knew McCowan or not, or at least knew of him, saw him regularly, probably waved at him, there was a sense of connection, even a distant connection. At least she knew his face and knew that he came around the same time. But obviously, she had no idea what was going to happen or what he was planning to do to her. It was such a beautiful place in Truro, Massachusetts. It was quaint, it was quiet, but it's such a tragic case here of Christa. What do you think about this case? Do you have other ideas about McCowan and maybe why he did what he did? Was it just a random act of impulsivity, or was it a planned and calculated attack because he knew her schedule? We may never know. If you have a case that comes to mind that has a psychological twist and a compelling story, let me know. I'm always looking for good cases. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, stay safe.